Every summer, I do a deep dive on Stoke City on EFL Debate, and every summer we're talking still about this championship era of the club. Of underperformance is how you'd have to define it in the last 7 years it is now, since they came down in 2018. Stoke City have spent comfortably nine figures in that time on the playing budgets cumulatively, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was north of £200 million, the amount of money that they've spent on transfers and wages. And yet they've not even broken the top half of the championship, which I think has to be reflect really badly on everybody involved in terms of not I feel harsh blaming the coach family because they have put a lot of money into the club, but the way that spending has been directed culturally, fitness wise, in terms of stylistic identity, all of those things I think you have to question. But what I am quite encouraged about is that they've appointed a manager in Mark Robins, who did fantastic work over a number of seasons with Coventry City. He inherited the Sky Blues at their lowest ebb of 2017 when they were on their way down to League Two, and he won them promotion at the first attempt, and won the League One title a couple of years after that, and led them into promotion contention gradually in the Championship over a number of seasons. And this is somebody who knows how to manage not just a team but actually a club, because whereas Adi Vivash did a lot of the work on the grass in terms of coaching, Mark Robins was the one overseeing the operation. And I think, although unlike his time at Coventry City, Mark Robins is now going to be working with a sporting director in Jonathan Walters. Walters is actually quite inexperienced in the role. He's only had a few years in the industry, after retiring from playing, and I think he probably could do with a little bit of guidance from somebody who knows how to oversee the operation and knows what a successful winning club looks like. And hopefully Walters can take a lot from that. Meanwhile, Mark Robins will hope to oversee a team, condense the squad a little bit, and build a team that can start to live up to its potential and live up to the amount of money that's been invested in this Stoke City squad. He's got some good coaches as well alongside him in Paul Nevin and James Rowbury, who's worked with the FAW. So there are some reasons to think that Stoke City can make some progress, but there's also reasons to be sceptical of this football club after what's happened over the last 7 years. But can they turn a corner, and are they ready to make that step forward? That's what we're going to try and find out in this summer deep dive. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. I'm speaking to a fan of each of the 72 EFL clubs between mid-June and mid-July. So if you like what we do here and you want a bit more of this content, you could do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Dan Buxton from the excellent Every Step Along the Way podcast on Stoke City. Thanks so much for joining us, Dan. Good to have you on. How do you kind of balance the feeling of scepticism around Stoke City with what's gone before in the last 7 years or beyond, versus a little bit of optimism, I guess, about what Mark Robins can do?
Yeah, I think Mark Robins as a manager is probably the most complete manager and probably the most experienced at this level that we've had since we got relegated. We have had numerous managers. We seem to flip-flop from one style to another, one end of the scale to the other, tearing up plans at will. So it's nice that I think we've got somebody. Do you know what? I think he is probably the closest thing to, say, a Tony Pulis type manager as you're probably going to get in the modern day, in the fact of he will run the club, which is what, for all of Tony Pulis, the style and whatever, if you strip all that away, when he was at the club, he was in charge of everything. Like you just said there with Mark Robins, that is pretty much what he does. He likes to sort of keep his eye over everything. He's in charge of everything. And I think that gives you a bit of a direction. I think that's what we've been lacking in the last few years. Like I say, a plan and the ability to stick to that plan, and maybe when the discontent comes, when it's not quite working, just having faith in it that it would come good. Because I think the first sign of any trouble, we're gone in from a club that for a long time, like mentioned with Tony Pulis, obviously apart from the one season when he left for Plymouth, He was there for about 10 years. And then after that, Mark Hughes was there for 4 or 5 years. We had a great reputation as we were a club that didn't sack managers, a club that gave people
mm,
time. And that has just gone completely out the window, just looking back. I mean, 7 years we've had Gary Rowett, 6 months,
mm,
Nathan Jones, 12 months. Although, to be fair to Nathan Jones, I think even he can't argue that he was given, a
yeah,
fair time with the results that he had.
sure.
Um, Michael O'Neill had 2.5 years. I think he was unfairly sacked when he did. I always thought that from the time. I think he was working under a lot of restraints put in from the
Mm.
money that was spent by Rowett and Jones. And it was only sort of coming to the end of that.
I also feel, Dan, he would Michael O'Neill, I would say, is the one in the last 7 years that's probably got the closest to building a team that can compete in the top half.
Yeah,
And probably no coincidence that he's also had the longest amount of time.
the two full seasons that I mean, he came in with his bottom of the league, and
Mm,
we finished comfortably Well, I say comfortably mid-table, lower mid-table, but we never really. Once he got us going, we never really in the threat of relegation. The two full seasons that he had with us, we were second in the December when Tyrese Campbell did his ACL. And because obviously the restraints we were working with, we couldn't replace him, and the whole game plan was around Tyrese Campbell at the time. The following season, we were, I think, fifth in the league in November, and Harry Suter did his ACL playing for Australia, and the whole game was based on Harry Suter bringing the ball out of defence and everything else. And again, a player we just couldn't replace, and we ended up finishing mid-table. And like I say, he did the best. He managed to mould a successful-looking side out of not very much,
mm,
and the inability to trade and to bring other people in, working with a lot of youngsters on the first time loans and stuff like that. That, it's the players who've gone on to have great careers we've noticed now, but when they were at Stoke, they were very raw. And like I said, that's what we were working with at the time. And like I say, he did a fantastic job for me, and he deserved another season. But yeah, obviously he went. Alex Neil came in. There was never really a connection between Neil and the fans. That never really materialised. He was very much. Um, I think he was very abrupt in a lot of his statements and stuff like that, and there was not that sort of connection. So that never really worked out. So the fans, the first sign of any trouble, they were on his case, and then the chairman acted.
right.
And then obviously, yeah, from there we had Stephen Schumacher, and then obviously the last season's lovely 3 manager, 4 manager, however many you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which brings us to where we are now.
Yeah, I feel like now you've gone through all the managers you've had in the last 7 years. I feel like we're almost at the end of the podcast.
Yes, there's been a
Joining back.
lot.
Yeah.
I don't think we're a club who give people time anymore.
No, no, absolutely. Hopefully that can change, though. I'm wondering about the sporting director, Jonathan Walters. What have you made of his early sort of impact on the club? And do you think that with the guidance of somebody like Mark Robbins, he can become a good sporting director for the football club?
Yeah, I think it was one of those. Obviously, we're talking about connections with fans. Stephen Schumacher did get that. There was something, I think, him having quite a young side, quite a vibrant side, they were entertaining, and I think that people brought into it. So
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Walters, given the job full time last summer, obviously after taking it on the end of the previous summer on just a temporary basis, um, he got it permanently, and then obviously one of his first acts is to sack the manager, and straight away the fans were like, "What are you doing?" A lot of supporters, not all, but a lot of supporters were sort of like, what's going on here? Why has this happened? How can you sack this guy? And so his sort of, he now then for a long time got blamed for a lot. Anything that went wrong, it was his fault. So I mean, nothing to do with his job, nothing to do with his remit, but it was always down to him. And it's like anything that was done good because of the manager. Anything that went bad was because of John Walters. And I think, yeah, he's just that's what people's mindsets were with him. Not like I say, I think you're treading on, you're not doing a fair reflection if you end up with that. But again, that's a lot of the tribalism in football. That's how
Mm.
people work. And Like I say for myself, I've just thought give him a fair chance. He is experienced. He's going to learn. And that role as well, like people were calling for him to go when Narcis Polak went. I'm like, well, the thing is, if you're going to have that role, don't you can't get rid of somebody after one mistake, because then you may as well not have the role there. You may as well just appoint a manager. Like they should be allowed some sort of rope and, do you know what I mean, a bit of time or whatever. So I think he's made a good decision with Robbins coming in. I think that showed, like I say, he's reined back on what obviously his approach and what he wanted, what his idealistic way for Stoke to go was with Pollack. He went with Robbins. He brought him in. The business that we did last summer, I thought on the whole, a lot of the transfers, they weren't extravagant, but they were decent. We got decent youngsters in. We got a certain style of player and everything, and it seemed to work a little bit. I know you look at the results and think, how can you say that? But there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of injuries that didn't help last season. I think the actual sort of when we did our end of season sort of debriefing, you go through, you think, how many of these players actually are like, you look at them and think, oh well, we're down the bottom end because this guy's been playing rubbish or he hasn't contributed, and that. I think it's just the fact that the availability was so scarce with so many of them, and obviously, like I say, all the upheaval of the constant changing and manager and everything. I think that's why we were struggling last year. So hopefully he's learned from them lessons. Hopefully we can move forward now. He's appointed a good manager. He's appointed a good solid manager who can build foundations and then help the club grow. We've got good coaching staff in. We are trading wise, like I say, it's looking promising. I like the business we're doing so far. So I'm willing to. I would say I was willing to give him time anyway, but I definitely think he's on the road to redemption with a lot of supporters, I think, at this point.
Yeah, what I like about having Robbins as manager is that it puts more pressure on not pressure is maybe not the right word, but more onus on the players, because I think when you've got somebody like Narcis Palach who hasn't been a number one before, whether or not it's true that, the question marks of his lack of experience, I think it's a very easy thing to level at a head coach when things aren't going well. Whereas I think if Mark Robbins isn't getting the results, having done amazing work at Coventry City, the feeling is going to be, well, if it can't be Mark Robbins because of what he's done, so therefore it must be the players. And I think that having the focus on the players rather than the manager, I think is a healthy thing, because I think it probably is time for some of them to step up. But which of the players that you mentioned injuries last season, is there anyone who you think can come back from injury and make a big impact this season?
I thought we looked a totally different side when Sam Gallagher played last season, which, he's not a sexy signing or anything like that, but just gave us a focal point. I think if you look at the other options we had up front, Tom Cannon was a great finisher. He worked really hard first half of the season, but he wasn't that. You wasn't that sort of escape route if you're trying to get out and get out the field. Obviously, Emre Tezgel was very much in the similar mould. He's a youngster trying to find his way, trying to find his game. And then Nathan Lowe in the second half of the season when he came back.
What a talent. I swear, Dan. I've watched him for Walsall. He's an unbelievable forward. I can't wait to see what he can do for you lot.
I think as well, though, that like when we played Nathan Lowe, his game, obviously watching him for Stoke and watching him at Walsall, is very much around again finishing. He's a very good finisher, first time finisher. He makes great runs in and around the box, and I think Stoke looked at him and thought, 6'3", 6'4" forward. Oh, we can look the ball up to him, and I'm like, that's not his game. Like he doesn't, just because he's tall does not mean he wants the ball in at his head or his chest. He likes the ball into his feet, lay it off, and then getting into the areas. I think his game as well wasn't helped by the fact that we had Million Manoff and Bejourno on the wings, who are two wingers who like to sort of inverted. So they like to come inside and sort of get shots away, or they not get to the byline and put a cross in, which is, I think, what he was looking for.
Well, you say that, but I do think Lowe is quite versatile in his skill set, because he is quick and strong, so he does like to run in behind, and he can do that really well. But I also think when I saw him at Warsaw, he's very good at dropping into those little pockets of space and
Yeah.
linking up with other players. So I think he's got a lot. I don't. I'm surprised that you didn't see more impact. Maybe it was maybe that service aspect from those wide players, but there's definitely more to come from him, I think.
Yeah, I think Ali Al Hamidi obviously was the striker in the second half of the season. I think he just had that little bit more um, experience and that little bit more ability to play on his own, maybe that Lowe didn't. So I think Lowe plays better with somebody close to him. But let's say maybe I say I think he's versatile. I think he'll come, but again, he's such a young lad as well, and he's got a lot of he's still developing and still learning. Um, Learning his trade. Obviously, we're hoping the same with sort of Emre, who's cracked under 21 football. Yeah, that's he's completed that now. I think he needs to.
Not quite sure about Dan's connection. I don't know if anyone can how that's coming across at home, but I'll just remove him for now, and hopefully Dan can rejoin when the connection works. Yeah, I think I'm really excited about Nathan Lowe. I think with a big pre-season, he can really make a contribution for Stoke City because he's such a complete forward. And what I loved about him in League Two was that it's just so rare at that level, certainly for one forward to have such a versatile skill set and such a range of qualities. And I think that's what really excites me about his move. Well, it's not a move, is it? It's returning from that loan spell, and maybe didn't have the impact on the second half of the season in terms of opportunities and maybe service, as Dan alluded to there. But I think he can make a big contribution. But what I'm also intrigued about is the striker options for Stoke City. Look quite competitive this season because you've got Sam Gallagher, as Dan mentioned earlier, who Stoke looked like a different team when he played last season with his physical presence and his height and aerial prowess that can certainly create space for other players. But then you've got Nathan Lowe, who I'm expecting huge things from. But then you've also got Divin Obama on loan from Manchester City, who I would expect to be Stoke City's number 9, given the reviews that he's also got in from youth football. Obviously, it's a first-time loan, so you have to manage expectation a little bit with Mabama, but the indications are certainly very positive. Let me just check if Dan has got back to me about the connection. Right. Yeah, I think what I'm intrigued about with Stoke City squad is I think they've got one of the best shot stoppers in the Championship in Victor Johansson. We saw what he can do in that awful Rotherham United side. Yeah, Dan's just jumping on. Phone came overheating and not. Need to cool down, right? Okay. There we go. Hi, Dan. How are you? You're right.
I'm all right, thank you. Yes, I'm back.
Good to have you back. Yeah, so we're just wondering about the centre forward position because you've got lots of competition out there to say that you might only play with one up top because you've got Gallagher there, who you mentioned was very influential when he played last season. You've got Nathan Lowe, who I think is a prodigious talent, and you've also got Divin Obama on loan from Manchester City, who has rave reviews.
Yeah, so we've certainly got some options up there. I mean, with others, we've got Ryan Mize expected to leave the club. He's been told to find another club. Emre Tezgel, I think I'd expect him to go out on loan. I think
Yeah.
he's got offers in League One and League Two. And I think that was probably on one of the providers of his signing his new contract as well, was that he would get some first team football there this season. So I think, you know, with all good intentions, Stoke could try and keep him around the side, but they can't guarantee him that, can they? Whereas I think if they send him out on a loan, they've done their bit then, haven't they? And like I say, I think he'll be a hit wherever he goes. He's another great talent that we hopefully can keep at the club long term. Like I say, obviously, Nathan Lowe, it wouldn't surprise me. I think the plan is to send him out. I think there's been a few clubs in League One who are very interested. I think Huddersfield, Wickham, Luton especially, which is good as well because obviously they're 3 clubs who you'd expect to be challenging at the top end of the division. And so he's going to get service and he's going to get involvement in the games, which is what you want when you send a player out on loan. And I think as a striker, the more times he gets involved, the better. Which would then leave, like I say, just a couple of players up front. So we probably are going to be looking at least one more coming in, I think, as well.
I think I can see the logic to loaning Nathan Lowe out, but I would personally keep him around as part of the squad because I think he can have a real impact. But yeah, so I certainly wouldn't. I think if you'd want one more centre forward, I think you'd keep Nathan Lowe as part of the squad just because I think he can make that impact. Um, but in terms of the goalkeeping department, talk to me about Victor Johansson, Dan, and the
Oh,
season he had for you last year.
what a guy. Scooped every award going at the Player of the Season awards. Yeah, I don't know where we would have been for a long time of the season without him. He was fantastic. We've, as a club, we have got a long history of top goalkeepers. I mean, they don't come with Gordon Banks, Peter
Yeah.
Shilton. They don't come much better
Isn't
names
that
than
brilliant?
that.
You've got two of England's all-time greatest goalkeepers were made
Yeah,
in Stoke.
yeah. And then we had Peter Fox for a long time, people like that, and then obviously in the Premier League era, we once had a trio of goalkeepers: Jack Butland, Asmir Begovic, and Tommy Sorensen.
Mm,
I mean, three who probably would have walked into most sides, and we had all three. So we've we've always had good goalkeepers, and then the last few years, since Jack Butland's form dropped off a cliff and we never really recovered, we have sort of gone from decent goalkeepers, but the good ones were only on loan. And then Mark Travers, for example, he'd end up getting recalled.
mm,
Daniel Everson was only there for a few months before his loan ended. So we never had a settled number one. And then we brought Victor Johansson last summer. Obviously, we'd seen what he'd done for Rotherham. I think he pulled off something like 18 saves one game where Rotherham won 1-0 at the Bet365. And he was like, "This, yeah, okay, we've seen what you can do." And so
yeah,
we were all fully clued up. And he came in, he was just absolutely outstanding, straight from the off. Actually, no, to be fair, August, he took a little bit of settling in, getting used to his defence, first 2 or 3 games. After that, actually outstanding, pulled off world class saves that any goalkeeper would be happy with and be raving about. I think his distribution isn't amazing. It's not poor, but it's not a modern day goalkeeper distribution.
sure.
But you know what? There's so many goalkeepers out there that in the modern day and that the more bothered about what they do with the feet than the hands. And
Mm,
I think that you never see them really pull off any saves, but they can hit a 50-yard diagonal, and it's like, well, we've got a keeper here who's a throwback in them terms. He's a fantastic shot stopper, and that's what I want from my goalkeeper. To be fair, I want him to get the ball out the net.
yeah, it does certainly does that first and foremost. But I guess you've got quite a good goalkeeping unit as well because you've got an experienced Championship goalkeeper in Frankie Fielding, who's been around this division for a while. Bonham's in there as well, and you've also got Tommy Simkin, who's had an excellent loan in the National League with Solihull Moors, did quite well in League Two with Walsall last season as well. Is Simkin one who you think might be offloaded on loan this season?
Yes, I think there's a few teams again in League One. They're trying to get him into League One now. I think
Mm.
Peterborough has been rough, like loosely mentioned. I don't know how much is in that.
Peterborough have just signed a goalkeeper, I think, but so it might be looking at somebody
Yeah,
else, but somewhere else, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, there's probably looking at there's another club then if that's the case. So but yeah, like I say England under 21 international. So yeah, I always think the England youth ranks and that. I think decent players in that, but I think once you get to under 21s, if you're in that sort of setup, you've got to have something about you. I think special, haven't you,
Mm,
to play at that level. Um, and yeah, I think he's done well anti at Warsaw.
mm,
I think he's grown a lot as well in that my concern with him was that he was fantastic. Again, great shot stopping, but he is good with his feet. He's very, he can come in, he can be positive and take control of situations, claim crosses. But when something goes wrong, he was a bit fragile mentally, as in like he would maybe fall apart. And if they conceded one, if you found that with Warsaw in the first half of last season, if they
mm.
conceded, all of a sudden they could then concede a second and maybe the third. I
Yeah,
think there was one home game where he hadn't let a goal in for about 5 games. He had like 5 clean sheets in a row. The opposition scored and they won like 6-3. Was it Fleetwood maybe?
oh, Fleetwood, yes, in October, yeah.
Yes. And it was like all of a sudden, then you watch the highlights, you think, yeah, you probably could have saved about 4 of them goals, but I
Mm.
think his head just went. And then as the season's gone on, speaking with the couple of contacts we have at Walsall and watching him, he very much seems to have matured in that respect. And I think that was basically that's the reason why he sent players out on loan, isn't it? You've got this potential, but these edges need like smoothing down a bit. And he's obviously gone and improved that sort of reaction to setbacks. Which, if he's done that, then that's a massive flaw in his game gone. And yes, I think he'll be a top keeper. I
Mm.
think he does need another year out on loan, but basically because that's better for him at this stage than kicking his heels watching Victor Johansson play.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Jack Bonham's an able number two. He's not somebody I particularly want us to be relying on week in week out, but
Mm.
if he's needed for half a dozen games for a strain or something with Johansson, then that's fine. And Frankie Fielding is fantastic. He never plays, obviously, he never gets on the pitch. I think he's one appearance in 3 years, but he runs the dressing room and
Right.
all the lads run it. All the lads love him. He's in charge of the fines.
Mm.
He's like I say, he just keeps the place positive and everything, and that's sort of his role, if you like. And I
Mm.
think he loves it. He's taken to it. He accepts that's where the point of his career is at. And yeah, I think never heard a bad word said about him. I think like I say, all the players love him. I think when they did a piece, they were asking like players, who are you looking forward to seeing when you come back to pre-season training? And the younger lads, the older lads, there was different players mentioned, but yeah, quite a lot of them straight back. Oh, I can't wait to see Frank. Can't see Frankie.
Oh,
So
oh, how lovely. Oh, that's nice. Well, that's great that you've got such an influential character there, because it's great that when somebody who doesn't play an awful lot can still make their presence felt, and so yeah, that's wonderful. I wonder if you can go into that kind of mentoring, goalkeeping
mm,
coach kind of role as well. So let's look at the defence then. Dan, I think Junior Chamadou and Eric Bocat are two high potential fullbacks. Bocat, I know the club were surprised that they were able to attain because they thought that he might be a little bit out of your budget or
mm,
attainability. And Chamadou has actually made his debut for Colchester United at 16, and he's another talent, really athletic right back, isn't he? Who can go very high. But I did like the link up play, or just going back to Bocat, I really like the link up play between him and Bejan Ho in the last third of the season.
yeah, I like Eric Bocat. I think when he first started last season, he took a bit of time to adjust to the championship. I think the
Mm-hmm.
frenetic pace of it, the lack of time he had on the ball, and I think that caught him out more than once. Like he'd sort of take a touch, and then he realised that sometimes you haven't got time to take a touch, and you've got to be more proactive with what you're doing. There's no time for thinking. You've got to know what you're doing, whether you get the ball in the championship. But he had a bit of he had a calf injury. At one point, I think we had 4 left backs all out with calf injuries. Amazing.
Mm.
But he had a calf injury and he came back after about 8 weeks out. And you could tell that, again, he learned, he'd maybe maybe sitting and watching for weeks actually was better for him, that he could take it in. And he came back
Okay.
and, like, say, he was much more aware of his surroundings and he was much more aware of what the pace of the game and everything. And they say he looked a lot better, a lot sharper. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do this season. Like I said, full pre-season with the
Mm.
manager, more settled in, knowledge of the players around him, knowledge of the league he's playing in.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I say, I think he's got a high bar.
And he settled into the environment, because let's not forget as well, when he first came to Stoke, he was moving. I don't think he'd ever been moved country before or whatever. So it's completely new environment, new country, new city, new everything. And you've got to take that into account. Whereas first day of pre-season this year, he's ready to rock and roll from the off. He knows the tempo of the
Yeah.
football, and he's kind of better equipped to hit the ground running for all sorts of reasons. So
Yeah.
exciting season ahead, hopefully, for Eric Bocat. Junior Chamadou, then, Dan, do you feel like he's been there for a couple of years? What's the verdict so far?
Yeah, I think he's played about 50 championship games now, and I'd say
Mm.
the last 25 remarkably better than the first 25.
Right.
I think he's again took time to settle. He had a lot of to and froing with Keanu Hoover being in that position when he first came. So sometimes he was out at left back, sometimes he was on the right wing, sometimes even on the left wing. So they tried to fit him in, and I suppose that just shows that they did see the potential. They were trying to get him in the side, but like I say, Hoover was sort of, with the competition behind him, once Junior had got up to speed, managed to sort of keep his level above the line, if you like, for being dropped. And then last season, he started the season, right, this is your spot now, you are the right back. And like I say, as the season went on, he became more dependable, he became more we could go to him, and where at one point in the season, sorry, the start of last season, maybe he was susceptible to the ball in behind. Well, he soon learned how to deal with that. He soon learned about different wingers, and now he said, like when he came from Colchester, that one thing that you notice in the Championship is that at Colchester you get time on the ball.
Mm,
You can make yourself time on the ball.
mm,
Um, Whereas he says the players in the Championship are cleverer, so they know how to sort of close you down, how to
mm,
take you down into places you don't want to go to. Um, he said also, like wingers, he says everybody's quicker, everybody's stronger, everybody's faster. He said,
mm.
and obviously wasn't used to that. So when he was
Yeah.
used to dealing with certain wingers, then all of a sudden he's like, oh, actually, this guy's a yard quicker than I'm used to, and he's
Yeah,
stronger.
that's the thing, isn't it? Because I think he was always, when he came to Stoke, you knew that he had some great raw minerals in terms of athleticism, but whereas in League Two, that made Junior Chamberlain stand out because he was one of the few players to have that kind of pace and power and whatever.
Yeah,
I think in the Championship, he's not quite so
it's
special.
standard. Yeah,
So he's got to kind of try and expand his game a little bit more. So yes, he's got the athleticism, but he's also got some in-game intelligence and other attributes that help him stand out that bit more. But that's to be expected because he's still developing and he's still pretty young.
yeah. I think we because he's a signed player, I think we forget sometimes that he is only 21 himself.
Hmm.
Like that you get academy players, you feel like, oh yeah, they always seem eternally young. Anyway, when
Hmm.
somebody comes to your academy, because you always remember them from when they were a teenager as such. And then when you
Hmm.
spend 1.5 million, 2 million on the right back, even though he is 19, you sort of forget that very quickly, don't you? Because he's coming from somewhere else. You feel like you're signing more like
Hmm.
the finished product.
I'm conscious of time, Dan, because I know you've only got another 10 minutes or so. So I want to be respectful of that. So if we could just kind of whiz through the rest of the squad a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on the centre back positions. You've obviously signed Talavierov from Plymouth Argyle, a big centre half who's quite imposing. You've got Jaden Dixon, who's a really exciting player from the Thriving Academy. You've got Ben Wilmot and an experienced Championship defender in Ben Gibson there as well. So how are you feeling about your central defensive options?
Yeah, I think again, Jaden Dixon. I think he's another one now who needs some game time, whether that's with Stoke or out on loan. You're probably going to get it out on loan, so I think the option probably would be to bring a younger centre half in, maybe to challenge in hour four, and then get him some guaranteed game time. The only thing being, if we kept Dixon as one of the four, and then Wilmot and Maxi, as we're going to be calling him. um, if they sort of strike a partnership up and Ben Gibson's the first reserve, how much time might
Hmm,
Jaden Dixon see? If they, because obviously your centre back partnership sometimes can be one that's there week in, week out, isn't it? Obviously, there's not as much sort of running, whatever, being done at centre half as to
sure.
midfielders, etc. It's like stable goalkeeper, two centre backs. They might play 45 games each next season, and
Hmm,
then Jaden Dixon's lost another year of development. So I'd get
yeah.
him out. I think we need, like I say, bring another aspiring young centre half in. Um, Very, very excited by the signing from
Hmm,
Plymouth. I think he was fantastic in the. So I must have seen Plymouth 3, 4, 5 times second half of last season, and every time he was outstanding. Rave reviews from everyone at Plymouth. They've said that he's 5 times the player Ashley Phillips is, and Ashley Phillips was absolutely immense for us last season.
right.
So if he is that, he'll be
He's a
a
bit more
world beater.
experienced, isn't he, than Ashley Phillips, though? He's a bit on the older
Yeah,
side. Yeah.
I from when I saw those comments, I thought it was probably the case that we had with, say, Liam Delap, Taylor Harwood
Hmm,
Bellis, people who Jaden Philodine Bidace, people who came to us for their first loan, and then it was the next loan when they had a little bit more experience, when they really kicked on. And I thought, yeah, Ashley Phillips, he's obviously gone there, he's done all right, and then he's come to us that little bit more experience and really done something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably been the case.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
a good job you've got Divin Mabama on a first time lane then.
yeah, no, yeah. Although to be fair, he's played like 20 times already, hasn't he, for, like Manchester City and West Ham, so at least he's got a
Yeah,
little bit of experience.
yeah.
He seems to have the golden touch as well. He's played for Man City when they won the FA Cup and West Ham when they won the Conference League. So I don't know what trophies we'll be winning this season, but
FA Cup.
yes.
There you go. So in terms of central midfield, then you've got Seiko, who played a fair bit last season. You've got Whiteberger, who I know has been linked away. Bosun Lowell, who did superbly at Fleetwood in League One in the 23-24 campaign, still waiting his opportunity. Ben Pearson, I think, has been linked with Millwall. And Sol Sidibe, who's come through the academy as well and is another highly rated prospect that we're talking about.
Yeah, so we actually interviewed, we mentioned Ashley Phillips just, we interviewed him last week, and one of the things was we've got a lot of promising youngsters. Who is there any name out of them that sort of sticks out? And he said Sol Sidibe. He said obviously there's a lot of talented players, look great. He said, but in his eyes, he says I've told him this. He says Sol Sidibe will play for England. He's like he's that good.
Right.
So yeah, I mean the fact I think again we sort of forget that he's still only 17.
Mm.
I think he's played like 20 or nearly 30 games already. He's still only 17. He missed the second half of last season with a stress fracture of the back. Otherwise, he would have played another 10, 15 games then as well, probably.
Mm.
Um, he looks the best thing about Sidibe when he plays. You don't know, you can't tell. Like how if you didn't know and you just watched the game of football, he wouldn't stand out as this
Right.
promising kid. He just looks like he belongs in there. Do you know what I mean? He looks
Is
as
that
composed.
I see? So kind of keeps things ticking over, kind of thing. That kind of player.
Yeah, he just looks. He gets the ball, he lays it off. He can go in. He can drive. He drives past players.
Mm.
He can pick a pass out. He can put somebody through on goal. There's lots. He's got a lot of things to his game, but again, he
Mm.
doesn't look like the youngster who's trying things out and is a bit maybe scared, a
Yeah.
bit. Really, he
Do,
just
do
looks
you know
like.
what though, Dan? Because we've had this conversation a lot about some of those top talents, like Nathan Lowe, like Jaden Dixon, like
Mm,
Simkin, like Sol Sidibe. And a lot of the time your answer's been loan them out, they might not be quite ready. But there's part of me that in situations like certainly with Sol Sidibe, where I sort of think, do you know what? Just kind of be that one where you just let them go and let
yeah,
them fly a little bit, and I feel a bit like that because this is a brilliant period in Stoke City's academy where you've got this astonishing generation of prospects, and I think if you kind of keep delaying their progress by laying them out not quite ready, you kind of miss the opportunity that they could come into the championship and be unbelievable.
yeah. With Sol, I think he is ready. I think he
Mm,
is. There's no like. You see the players like say they're a little bit rough there, or maybe he just needs a bit of work there. With Sol, like yeah, if he could play in the Championship now. He could, and he has been doing. And so
mm,
I think Stoke should be looking to integrate him as much as possible because he's only going to go from strength to strength when he does play. So they
mm,
just need to get him in there and just play him. Like I say, Wouterberger, I hope he stays, but it would not surprise me one bit if he does sort of move on. And
mm,
then obviously we've got Ben Pearson's another one. I hope he stays. Boss on the wall looked fantastic. He missed 95% of last season with a back injury that he had when he signed, and they just thought, oh well, he's one for the future. We'll just ride it out, get him while we can, kind of thing.
mm,
And yeah, it didn't quite work out. And I think he had a couple of setbacks, and like I say, missed the entire of the season. And then he came in last couple of games and looked fantastic. I thought, well, if that's him raw and looking without any championship experience and without any um, sort of fitness at all, any game, then you know what, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do when he's at a full pre-season. He's got fantastic sort of physique build to him, powerful. Yeah, looks really good on the ball as well. So he's very promising, and again, he's quite young as well. I think he's only 21, 22 himself.
mm. Nice. Um, and then I wanted to touch on the wide and attacking midfield options. You've got Bajan Ho. Are we talking about him as one of your best players?
Yeah, I think technically fantastic. I think his decision making is getting better, and I think a lot of the time as well, the ball can stick to him a bit like glue on the end of his foot, and he's one of them players a bit like Jack Grealish, where he can just hold it. If the
Mm.
tackle comes in, he can either just nick it round you or nip it away and win a free kick. And I think sometimes he's a bit too tenacious for his own good in that respect, and that he tries to like battle that back, whereas sometimes it's like you can take that. If someone's kicked you up in the air, you can, you are entitled to hit the deck in that situation rather than to try and like say battle back up, and refs sort of just think it's fair game at that point. But yeah, he is extremely talented, and he'll go far, I think, in the game. I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be here. There is a lot of rumours that he's sort of going to be on the way into obviously European clubs sort of chasing him, and that particular ones in Holland, I believe, a couple. So we're going to hope that he's still here come the start of the season. But yeah, obviously, as long as we are very well recompensed if he goes, then we get a decent fee for him. Then I suppose that's the aim of the game, isn't it? With PSR and everything, it's
Of course.
buy, develop, invest, develop, sell, reinvest, repeat.
That's the plan. Just a quick word on Million Manhoof. He's quite a powerful direct runner, isn't he? What are you expecting from
Yeah.
him this season?
Again, another one who missed a big chunk of last season through injury, but can on his day win a game for you. Fantastic. Very direct, can run at people, take people on. I watched him for the Netherlands under 21s in the European Championships. Watched him a few times, and the entirety of last season, he kept cutting inside onto his left foot, and it come to the point where it was nullified a lot because he was that regular doing it that defenders knew he was going to do it,
Yeah.
but he just kept doing it, and then like his impact sort of dropped off. But
What
I
I
think for
would
a lot,
sometimes like, actually, Dan, is if Manhoof can stay wide and Chamady makes the underlapping run. So you've got
yes,
something different for opposing teams to think about. But if they can strike up a relationship like the one Bajan Ho and Bocat have, then hopefully you've got threats on either side.
yeah, they do. I say, yeah, they do sort of work together quite well, and he does do that. Junior, he will sort of like say he'll sort of try and drag the fullback with him to give Manif
Mm.
the little bit of space just to run into. But like I said, I was watching for Netherlands, and he kept getting to the byline and whipping balls in with his right foot, and I'm like, I've not
Oh,
seen this all season. What is going on? I was like, hopefully that's not just his manager at international level telling him to do that, and that's something that he's decided to develop in his game, hopefully, because if he
yeah.
does that, I think he'll be surprised how lethal he can become back on that left foot if he goes onto his right sometimes. In that the defender then has the decision they've got to make rather than it being made for them by knowing what he's going to do. But yeah, again, he's another player, supremely talented. Um, put him 25 yards out and he'll find the bottom corner or the top corner every time. Put him 2.5 yards out and he'll probably hit it straight to the goalkeeper. He does not
Yeah.
score tap-ins. He does not score tap-ins.
No. Well, hopefully the clue is going to be in the name when you do sell him, because he
Yeah.
certainly is a talent. Maybe just hopefully can continue to add that versatility to his skill set. So some quick fire questions from me then, Dan, because I know you've got to shoot off. You can give me a one-word answer if you like to these. Biggest reason to believe in Stoke City right now?
Mark Robbins.
Biggest reason for doubt?
PSR.
Okay, nice. And finally, too early for prediction, but give me a rough feel for where you think next season might be heading for Stoke City.
I think top half playoff challenge, because that's what you basically are in this division, either one or the other. I think it'll probably maybe just come up short, but that would be. I think a lot of Stoke fans would take that right now.
Mm,
I think the thing is, obviously, from where we are or where we've been, and being in and around the playoffs, it's probably about 4 wins. That's how tight this division is, isn't it? You can go from 17th, 18th to 6th or 7th with just about 4 victories, 12 points. And it's about if they can get a team that can turn 4 of them defeats last season into wins, then doesn't seem like a major job, that does it? But it's been hard for the last 7 years,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Absolutely. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Love your stuff
No
on
problem.
the Every Step Along the Way podcast. So everyone get subscribed to that. You can subscribe to Earfelt Debate on YouTube and on Spotify and TikTok as well now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again for another Somebody Dive very soon.